Thank you for joining me today, Alcohol Inks with Michelle with Art Flow, and we're going to be doing a Northern Lights theme art piece today. I'm going to show you some different techniques that we can play with, and I think you're really going to enjoy yourself. If you love color, this is the place to be. So we're going to be working with some air, with some kind of a, I'm not sure how I would call it, but kind of a flooding technique. So it's when I kind of take the, put the inks on, and then I take the alcohol and I let it drip off, just because it gives a certain effect you can't really create any other way. So it's just kind of a cool thing to do. So what we're going to be starting with is we're going to work on the upper half, which is going to be our sky. And then after I kind of get that laid in, then we're going to lay in our ground. And that's where we're going to do the drip technique that gives us kind of that wash kind of cliff feeling, almost like water movement. But again, it's up to your interpretation. So here we go. So I'm just going to start with whatever color I want to be in my center. And I think I'm going to go with some sunshine yellow, because why not? All right. So I'm just going to draw a line of it. Not too much, but enough that, you know, she's talking. And then we're going to take the air, because why not? And we're just going to push it. Okay. So we're just going to let it kind of expand. We can just kind of make sure that it's going to move, and it's okay if it goes off the page. And again, we're not looking for perfection here. We're just looking for the colors to kind of come together. So you can decide how you want to go. You can work dark to light. You don't have to do that, just whatever feels good. So now we're going to take some coral. We're going to come along with it. And we're just going to blend those two together and push it up. Okay, just as easy as that. So all of a sudden you can see already those two colors where they touched. We got new colors happening. Okay, so then I'm going to come over to the other side and I'm going to work on the yellow with some pool. And all of a sudden you can see those colors pushing and moving. And we're going to push back with some air and up. Now if you want these colors softer, you can always add a little bit of alcohol to lighten them up. Now we got a little bit of white peeping through there. Don't worry about it, it's totally fine. So I'm going to come over to my side where I've got my coral, and I'm going to add in some wild plum. Seriously, one of my favorite colors, because it's just happy. It's just beautiful. So I'm just going to push that with my air, let the colors kind of do their thing. And it's okay if you get some of those funky little movements in there, because that's just going to, again, build our depth. So again, you can look at the colors and say, okay, what color do I want to go now? I kind of span out with my darks, my lights to my darks. So we're going to come in now with some stream. It's kind of a turquoise, but a deeper one. And we're just going to come along. So now, right now, what's happening is this guy has got his little spout stuck. So sometimes I can just work them around here and we'll get them going. Sometimes they want to be non-cooperative. So we'll set him down and we'll come over to our denim, and he's happy, so we'll go there. Denim's the next color coming in. And again, you don't want too much because they bloom quite a bit, but enough that it's going to have some movement here. Okay. And you can see how they all move just slightly different. Just again, depends how much alcohol to pigment. All right. So now as I come over to my side, I'm going to take it with some indigo, and I'm going to add it beside my plum. This can be kind of a purpley tone. Sometimes it can be a deep blue. It just depends how much of it you use. And you can see it doesn't move as much. So with that one, I'm going to grab a little bit of my blending solution. I'm going to put a little bit throughout it, just so we can get some movement. You can see already how that alcohol is just eating in there to get it moving for us. Okay. All right. And I think I'm even going to try a little bit of coral just to switch it up on this one a little bit. And a little bit of my alcohol just to kind of blend those two. And back to the air. Oh, that's looking cool. Okay, that really changed that up. So now at any point, because I'm really liking that over there, I can go in and do that with my other colors too, because that just all of a sudden just got really interesting. Okay, so then I think I'm going to come with my pool, and I'm going to hit it on the other side of my denim blue here. I have a real hard time doing the same colors twice, just because that's just how I'm wired. So I always like to kind of play around with variations of colors. Okay, and I think now I'm going to take some of my blending solution at the bottom of each of these spots. Just put a few drops along there. And we're just going to blend these colors some more. Okay, and I think I want some right into my yellow in my coral, and we're going to fix that little white spot. And just short blast with your air tool. You can use a compressor, you can use an air can, whatever gets it there for you. All right, I think we're just going to put a little bit more of our pool just up the side here. And a little bit of alcohol in there just to get that darkness moving. Okay. All right, so I say to myself, okay, what do I need? Well, this is a little bit of a hard edge, so we're just going to follow that with some alcohol. And we're going to soften that and blend those colors a little more. And so you kind of see how it kind of makes it look like it's dancing upward, like you got these little. And we're going to add some right on the edge of that indigo and plum and get that moving. All right. And we got a little bald spot, so we're going to hit that. And one more. All right. So there's our sky. You can soften it, you can lighten it, you can blend it more, but what I really recommend is that you don't overblend. Some people, they get something they like the technique, the next thing you know, they just keep doing it to the point that they've overworked it. So at this point for me, I like how that's looking. So I'm going to leave that alone and I'm going to say that's my sky. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my foreground. And how I do that is with the black. So the black is a real interesting color to use. It has so much pigment that you get so many different variations that come up from it. Now I'm going to have probably a little bit of lightness in here that I may have to push some color into, but we'll just see how this plays out. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take it straight from the bottle, and I'm kind of just going to say, okay, how do I want this to kind of shape up? So I kind of want a bit of a like a slope to it. Now with this here, I'm going to add some alcohol to it to make it flow. So this is where you're going to have to be a little bit brave, and you're just going to say, okay, trust the process. So I'm coming at the top of my pitch black, and this is where I have to lift my page to just let the colors come down. And you can see all these other colors that just start to show up out of our pitch black. I'm going to bring it back up, let it rest a little bit, push the side. Okay, and at this point I can take my brush because I want that color all the way to the side. She's a little dry. And she's got some brown in her, which is totally fine. So we're going to use that dirty brush and we're going to take those browns and work with it. I know sometimes that sounds a little bit weird, but I don't know. Sometimes there's some magic in there that you just have to let it show you. So all I'm doing is just pushing the color around. I'm not working any really specific, just kind of want my black everywhere. And you can see with the brown, it's kind of giving us some different lighting. Okay, and there's a bunch of cool things happening, and it's fun just to watch and see what's it gonna do, because sometimes you kind of can expect it, and other times you go, oh, that's something I've never seen happen before. So I'm really thinking that's pretty cool. And we can pull some of this darkness up. So I'm leaving this open here because last time I didn't, and my color didn't really show up as well through there. So it's this time I'm going to see the difference between leaving it with no color. All right, and sometimes you just have to be a little bit patient and allow the colors to just dry on their own, especially when you got some really cool stuff happening that you don't want to rush the process on. Okay, so I got my sky and I've got my foreground, and this here is where we're gonna put some water running through there eventually. Just kind of tapping around and just moving color. And this here looks like a little forced, so we're gonna pull some of our dark back up in there and maybe even hit it with a little bit more. Okay, and then we're just going to give a slight tilt. Just let gravity help us out. And you got to remember, as you're working, your alcohol's drying, but if you keep it wet with your blending solution, then you'll always have it moving. Okay. Let's let that drip down a little bit further. And if all of a sudden you find you got too much liquid happen, it's okay, just let it drip down to your paper towel. And at this point, I'm going to let it rest just a little bit here. And when I let it rest, you can see the color kind of comes back up, and then they also expand. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to start popping in some of our trees. There's a part of me that's tempted to put a little bit of alcohol here just to wash some of these colors down. And I'm kind of thinking about, do I want to wash those colors down or bring my dark up? I think we're just going to leave it with a bit of white ground in the back and just see what happens. All right, so I'm going to start off with my evergreens, and all I'm going to be using for those guys is straight black. Now I just have to be careful when I'm using my black that I'm not touching into anything that's wet on here, because if I do, it'll start moving and blooming. So I've got one big evergreen on one side, and then, so again, I just tap these bad boys in. There's no real serious method, it's just kind of a back and forth. Kind of can give myself a center point of reference. And so we're just working on a silhouette here. We're not trying to have these trees be, it's just their outline. And then we're going to come up with our other guy, and we're going to say he's living over here. And we got a little more ink, so this guy's not as defined, so if he's too wet, just tap it off, and you can always lift some ink out of there too. And maybe this guy needs to go a little higher. And again, I just kind of stagger my taps back and forth, back and forth. Nothing too serious. And you can always come back in and add some more layers to it. All right, you can see in the center here my ink decided to grow as it does. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this. Oh, right, this is my friend that didn't want to cooperate. All right, we're going to go with some stone wash, and we're just going to put a line right down the middle and see what that does. It should start moving out. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to kind of pull that guy down a little. Try to get some water movement. And then I'm going to kind of try to make it like we got a little bit of a water basin up here. And that water's just found its own way to travel. It's got its own path. And anytime I find that the black starts taking over, you just gotta give your brush a little wash, tap off on your paper towel. And you can add ink right to your brush if you want to add a lot of color. And just try to decide how that's going to go in there. And this down here is still pretty wet, so that's why it's kind of got its own mind right now. Is it's saying, I want to go this way. I'm saying, okay, but what about a little bit of this? And over here, we got to soften that edge up so it looks like it's flowing. All right. Now I'm going to add in a I feel like I need to bring that color down, so I'm going to do a bit of a bold move here. And I'm going to wet up my colors here. And I'm going to see, where do I want to start that? I'm going to go straight across here. Now that's going to come down and touch my trees, but no panic, because we can fix them up. I just want to see if we can get that color to pull down without going too far. And I think I'm going to have to add a little bit closer down just to get it to move. And I think we're going to hit her with a little bit of air just to force that movement. Get her going where I want her to go. And you can just do some gentle little blasts there. Don't worry about those trees, they're just straight up black, so we can go back in and fix them up. But I was just deciding if I wanted that highlight of white in the background, and as I got going I decided that it was a little too bright. Okay. And a little bit more over top here. So again, I just really like to do slow, gentle blasts, just so you're not getting too much force. All right, now we got a line across the sky, and I'm okay with that at this point. So we're just gonna rotate this back around, and I'm gonna come back with my blue, put some more water action in there, and get a clean brush, and just kind of work that in there. Okay. All right. Now I want to work on those trees, get their shape back, because my colors decided to get a little pushy, which was totally fine, because sometimes you have to just let it happen to get the outcome you're looking for. All right, then we're going to come back over to this guy. It's still a little bit wet up top there, so you might get some blooming on that guy. And if it gets too dark and the trees don't have any real depth or dimension, we can just go in with some alcohol and lighten those guys up and pull out some. And this guy's going to grow a little bit here. And again, it's just the silhouette. We're just looking for the outline. All right. Now I got some white happening there, so we might grow this little tree here just to fill in some of that voided area there. All right, so I'm not going to worry too much about that white. I can come and push some color back in. But now I'm going to put in my tree that's going to be my main topic here. So again, I'm just going back in with the black, and we're just gonna give an outline of a silhouette of a tree here. So I'm gonna start at the bottom and bring her up. Now we got a little bit of wetness in the background, so it always creates some interest that you don't really know how that's gonna play out. Sometimes it's like, okay, it's a good thing, sometimes it's not. So sometimes you just gotta try just to see. We're just making it like this guy is kind of right on the edge of the cliff there. And again, these are just the silhouettes of the trees here, so we're not going to worry about too much detail. Just kind of more of the outline, just to kind of give that impression that it's there. Now, when my brushes get too thick and I want a finer outcome on my branches, that's when I go into the markers, because there's a lot more control that you have with the markers than you do the brushes. And even the micro brushes can be really great for this part, but you have to just remember that again too, if you don't tap them off, you can get some blooming happening, not necessarily always that you want it. And so we're going to go back to that pigment brush. Found this brush, it's got a nice fine tip, but it also really works really nice with the alcohol inks. And then you can really just go in and give it some fine detail, kind of really tweak your branches and really get the feeling of some really details. And again, we're just talking about silhouettes here, so we don't have to get too serious. And we're not going to be going for a lot of texture, because in a silhouette you don't have to worry about seeing the texture. All right, so now with this little white areas, I'm going to just tap in some color, probably with a brush, just so we don't have that white space. And I think we're going to pop in a little moon, because I don't know, they always just feel like they belong. So I'm just taking my Q-tip, putting it in my blending solution, and we got a little bit of a white spot up here already, so we might just work with that. We might have to put a little bit of the snow cap in here, because this here is pretty light already and it's not really popping. And we're picking up some color there, so it's coming into the moon. All right, doesn't look like much of a moon just yet. And we're going to find our snow cap sitting over here, give her a good shake. And these can get really sticky, this white mixative, because it's just a little heavier consistency. And we'll get that moon happening here. And the mixative does pick up the colors underneath, but it doesn't pick it up quite the same way. Okay. And we'll just let that breathe for a bit and see if it needs anything more. And then with the moon being over there, we can always come in and add a little bit of highlights on our trees. Now this will blend right into that black eventually as it sits. And we can do a little bit of highlighting over here. And I can always go back in with my black on my brush and work on those trees. Now my alcohol ink here is dried up, so I'm just going to add a little dab more in there. And like I said, a little dab will do you. You don't need much of this stuff to really get anywhere. And if you find he starts getting a little too wide in certain areas, just make your base bigger. And you can always arch your branches just to give it a little more, like the branches are heavy. And they've been holding up all of that. Okay. And I think I want my water a little brighter. And I'm a little sad that my stream didn't want to cooperate, so we're going to get some mermaid in there. And I'm just going to drop a little bit at the top. And then I'm just going to take the air can and see if we can force her down. And maybe even a little bit of alcohol, just to get her moving. And we want it to look like water, so it's okay just to let it run. And that's where you're going to get your kind of most natural technique for water looking like water. I find when we take the brush in there, it just looks a little too worked. So we're just going to take that edge, soften it up, bring that water line up. And again, water is going to go where it wants to. So it's just going to do its thing. And you can certainly encourage it. And just let her splash down there. All right. Just let her breathe a little bit. That's the one thing you have that you can always add is breath. And all of a sudden you get all this cool texture, you get it all moving, and it's just like, woo. All right, so now what I'm going to do is just bring some of this color that I have here into these areas, just so we can get rid of that white spots there. So I'm just going to clean this brush. She's pretty dirty. I was using her for the black. Okay, so let's just see if we can just wiggle this over here, pull it in, or if I should add some color. I think I'm just going to put a little dab on my brush and go in and add it. There we go. And I don't want to get too close to the tree, because if I do, it'll start picking up on the black. And then give it a little breath. All right. And I'm going to go in on the other side with some pool. And we're going to tap that color in. And sometimes, you know, it doesn't always go exactly as planned, which is okay. You just have to do a little bit of a workaround, but you'll still get the outcome that you're after. And there we go. Let me just tap it in. Okay. So at this point, I just want to kind of work on the definition of my tree. My water's looking funky. I like it. I got some hard edges here. I'm just going to soften on the one side, and I'm just going to do that by just going down with my brush and just working along that edge, just to kind of make it look a little more soft from the water movement. All right. And I love the black, because you get all these kind of cool variations out of here. This was the brown on the brush, so of course that didn't come out of the pitch black, but we got these variables here, and then you got even like some little shadows kind of coming in here. And I'm just going to lighten up my trees just a titch. So I just took some alcohol and I'm just going to tap in, and all that's going to do is just lift out some black and just give me a little more texture. And it's nothing that anybody can't do. I am 100% believer that you just got to sit down and try. And if you do, all of a sudden you're just going to find all these little wonderful outcomes that happen. And if you didn't try, you'd be missing out. All right. So again, you can keep going. You can tweak your trees. The markers are a really great thing to do. You can use pretty much any alcohol-based marker. They'll work with the alcohol inks, and they'll allow you to go in there and just seamlessly blend and start to add some more details. You can pretty much just tweak it till you're happy with the outcome. All right, I'm going to say that's it for this one. And again, the air is just a fun way to be able to push the colors and blend them. The black silhouette's just an easy way to kind of start learning how to do trees and put in your outlines without having to worry about too much detail and depth. So thank you for joining me today. I've really enjoyed having you here and look forward to seeing you again. If you like what you saw today, please like, subscribe, and share, and please join us again. Thank you.